Good afternoon, everyone. So, you all know of the Oculus Store for getting your apps discovered. There are other great options to help people discover your app on the Oculus mobile platform. We'll share with you today how to make your app more discoverable with Explore and Search in Gear VR and soon Oculus Go. I'm Florence Koskas, and I'm the product manager on Explore and Search. I'll be speaking today with my colleague Shirley, who is a program manager on the team. So, let me first introduce you to three different types of people: Matt, Sally, and David. Matt, Sally, and David discover content in Gear VR in very different ways. For Matt, it's serendipitous discovery. So it's Sunday afternoon, Matt is at home, he wants to have fun, be entertained. He puts his headset on, he doesn't know yet what he's going to do in VR, but he's looking for something cool to do. It's not always easy for Matt to find content that he's interested in. Now Sally. For Sally, it's guided discovery. Sally has some idea of what she wants to do in VR when she puts her headset on. She wants some control over her discovery experience. Sally just came back home from work, she's tired, and she wants to blow off some steam playing some VR games. So she knows she wants to play a game, but she doesn't know exactly which game yet and wants to browse available options. It's sometimes hard for Sally to find a game she wants to play. Finally, David. For David, it's targeted discovery. David knows exactly what he wants to do when he puts his headset on. He heard there is a new VR experience for Beauty and the Beast, and he really wants to try it. So David knows he wants to find this new experience in VR, but he doesn't necessarily know how to get there. So given their different needs, we need to build different solutions to help Matt, Sally, and David discover content in VR. Our role is to help you reach these three different types of people with your app. So let's get back to Matt, our first persona, and how he discovers content in Gear VR. For Matt, we built a serendipitous discovery experience, Explore. So Matt was just looking for cool things to do. So when he puts his headset on, the first thing we show him is Explore. It's a personalized feed of fresh content. Explore's goal is to recommend interesting content to Matt to help him figure out what to do in VR. Explore is front and center in home. It's the most prominent discovery surface in Gear VR, so Matt can't miss it. Explore is personalized, so if we know that Matt loves art based on his past interactions on the platform, then Explore will show more art content to Matt. What's also special about Explore is that it surfaces content from inside apps. So people like Matt can now discover an app's compelling content first before deciding to download it. For example here, Matt loves art, but without browsing Explore, he may not know that the Inception app has this great 360 video about a Salvador Dali exhibition. From the developer's perspective, Explore helps with distribution, but it lets your content speak for you. You can now try and win Matt over, not only with your app cover or your app trailer, but with all the content inside your app. You can decide to share some of your app's best content that you think is going to get Matt excited about your app. Explore does even more for you. It goes beyond content. Anything you want to tell people about, you can share in Explore. So, for example, you can share an announcement about a new feature you just released and that made your app so great. Or an upcoming promotion you're having in your app next month. Or even the live event that you're hosting in your app tomorrow. So let's get back to Matt's discovery experience in Explore. Matt was browsing his feed, and he just found this piece of content that he's interested in. When he clicks on it, he lands on this detail view where he can watch this 360 video about Salvador Dali, which gets him excited to download and have access to the entire app. If Matt already has downloaded this app, Then the call to action prompts him to open the app and entices him to re-engage with it. We call this building block of Explore a story. To share content from your app or an announcement about your app, you can create a story just like this one, and it will show up in Explore. This story will help you get more people to discover your app and re-engage with it. This is your chance to win Matt over. So Shirley will later explain best practices for creating stories. So let me share an example of a successful story in Explore. In early August, the New York Times created a story to tell people about their new VR app. This story alone drove 40% of the app's daily traffic in Gear VR during the week it was live. On the best day, it even drove up to 66% of the app's traffic. So Explore is useful to both people and developers. So this is why we're continuously investing in it. Up until now, Explore was only available to English-speaking users. I'm excited to announce that right after this talk, we're going to launch Explore internationally in 24 languages. So let's get back to Sally and how she discovers content in Gear VR. So as we said, Sally has some idea of what she wants to do when she puts her headset on. Let me explain how we build products to let people like Sally express their intent. First, we let people like Sally select topics that they're interested in their first VR session. We tag our content with these topics, and we show people who expressed certain interests more of what they want. It is important for you to tag your stories with these topics, and Shirley will later explain how. In fact, we found that people are more likely to download or open an app when a story is from a topic they selected. Actually, 36% more likely. For people like Sally who have some idea of what they want to do when they put their headset on, we also built a filtering bar on top of the Explore feed so people can decide whether they want to watch movies or videos, play games, or hang out with others in VR. Sally, for example, can now come back home from work, put her headset on, select the play filter in Explore, and browse games that are recommended for her. And she can finally find this game she wants to play. So you've just been through how Matt and Sally use Explore to discover content. Now David. For David, it's targeted discovery. David knows what he wants to do in VR. So for him, we're working on improving search. Before, people could only use search to look for specific app names. So David had to know which app has this specific piece of content he's looking for to be able to find it. Soon, we will be indexing content from inside apps in search so that people can search for content directly. They'll be able to search for photos, videos, movies, 360 interactive experiences, games, and much more. So David, for example, will be able to search for Beauty and the Beast and find the apps that are featuring this content. As a developer, this unlocks a new stream of traffic for your app by letting people discover your app when they search for your content. It turns out David is not alone. The majority of people are actually using search to look for content. While 40% of searches are for specific app names, the remaining 60% is people looking for content. They are looking for types of experiences, like a scary movie or a horror game. They're looking for themes or things they're interested in, like football or roller coasters or dinosaurs. And they're looking for specific pieces of content, just like David. So, given a lot of people are using search to look for content, indexing your content in search is a big opportunity for new traffic. So, you heard how Matt, Sally, and David discover content in Gear VR. how they use Explore for serendipitous discovery, how they use topic selection and filters to express their intent, and how they use search when they know exactly what they want. The good news is, to increase traffic to your app, there is only one thing you need to do. Create a story. We'll take care of the rest for you. We'll make sure this story shows up in both Explore and Search to reach these 3 types of people. So I'll now hand it off to Shirley, who will share best practices to create these stories. Shirley?
Thanks, Florence. All right. I want you guys to take a moment and think of one thing you really wish people knew about your app. What's something that could pique people's interest? Do you have an amazing video you think everyone should see? Or maybe you have multiplayer support coming out soon. These are the types of things we want to help you share with people so they can get excited about your app. Like Florence said, every developer has something they can create an Explore story about. There are 3 types of stories available today. We have in-app content stories, announcements, and events. All 3 of these stories can help people either discover your app for the first time or learn something new about your app that compels them to come back again. Let's start with in-app content stories. In-app content stories help you surface the content within your app directly to people. When we first launched, we thought that Oculus was building a theme park, and you guys were building individual rides. But actually, some of you built shopping malls, some of you built movie theaters, and some of you even built arcades. As a movie lover myself, it might take me a while to wander around this Oculus theme park, stumble upon your movie theater, and then discover all of your amazing content. In-app content stories put your movies directly in front of me the second I walk into the theme park, so that I get the opportunity to jump into your app and watch all of the content I like. This type of story is best for apps with pieces of content that can be consumed individually and independently from the rest of your app. For example, if you're a media app, you might have individual videos or previews. You might have movie trailers or episodes from a show. You might also have a collection of photos that can be consumed individually. If you're an educational app, you might have individual immersive learning experiences or games for people to consume. Think about if this is something that can apply to your app. To help you out, here's a good rule of thumb. If you have a menu of content anywhere in your app, you can surface each individual item of content in Explore. Once you create an in-app content story, we do all of the work needed to make sure your story shows up to the right people in both Explore and Search. This means if I like dinosaurs, your dinosaur video will be recommended to me in Explore. If I search for dinosaurs, your video will show up in my search results, so I have an opportunity to discover and download your app. This is a great example of an in-app content story created by Face Your Fears. For those of you that aren't familiar with this app, Face Your Fears had just released a new immersive experience that put you in a small seaside town where you were attacked by a swarm of birds. It's really terrifying. Face Your Fears wanted to create an Explore story to let people know about this new experience. While this story was live, it alone contributed up to 15% of the daily traffic for Face Your Fears. Creating an in-app content story is really simple. All you have to do is go to your developer portal, navigate to the Discoverability section, and pull up this form. We ask for a title, a description, and an image. These are the 3 core components of an Explore story. We also ask for a video URL, either 2D or 360, so people can get a preview of your content or even consume your whole piece of content. We ask for a story start time. This is basically when you want us to start showing your story to people. This is good for if you want to line up the Explore story with other marketing efforts or with a particular feature or product launch. And lastly, we ask for a deep link message. This lets people launch into a specific part of your app from the Explore story so they can consume similar types of experiences, or if your story was a preview, they can launch into your app to consume the full experience. So that form is a great way to start creating your first Explore story. But the more stories you create, the more opportunities you have to bring people back into your app again and again. For those of you with a lot of in-app content, we know you don't want to fill that form out a dozen times, so we're making your life easier. I'm excited to announce that after this session, we will be launching an open beta for our new in-app content API. This is a server-side REST API that takes in your app access token and all of the fields on the form you just saw. You can easily write a script using this API to create stories for all of your existing content. Or if you're, say, a videos app, you can add a hook to call this API every time you ingest a new video. If you're interested in learning more about this beta program, please reach out to us by email. So that takes us to our second type of story, announcements. Announcements are a great way to share the latest and greatest updates from within your app to people on the Oculus platform. Announcements should be timely and coincide with an exciting change. Imagine that I'm a user of your app. I love your app. I've spent tons of hours in it, and I've played through all of your levels. I actually wish there was more. Fast forward a few weeks later, I'm browsing through my Explore feed, and I see a story from you telling me that you just launched 5 more levels. I'm super pumped, and I jump into your app to start playing immediately. Your story helps me stay up to date with the changes in your app so that I can jump in when there's something new. You can use announcements to broadcast almost anything. If you're a gaming app, you might have new levels, or new characters, or new in-app purchases. You might have new gameplay modes like cross-platform support or controller support, maybe multiplayer support. You might also have new experiences like additional songs to sing in your karaoke app. The general rule of thumb here is, if you would post about something on social media, you should announce it in Explore. Think about it. 100% of the people that will see your story in Explore are already interested in VR and able to get into VR. We can help you find the best audience for your stories. Here's another great example of an announcement story by Groover. This one's a little creative. Groover was having a limited time offer for a bundle of content within their app. They wanted to use an Explore story to let people know that this sale was happening. While this story was running, it alone contributed to up to 14% of the daily traffic for Groover. Again, creating an announcement story is really simple. It's very similar to the in-app content form you saw. We ask for a title, a description, and an image. We also ask for a video URL so that people can preview your announcement or your change, a story start time, and an optional deep link message. If you don't give us a deep link message, the person will just launch into your app from the Explore story like normal. So that brings us to our third type of story, events. Events are a great way to drive people into your app at a specific time. This is really valuable for developers that either have timely content or that have experiences that need people to be online together, either to play together or interact together. You could have an amazing multiplayer app, but if I go in and can't find anyone to match with, I'm not getting the best experience that I know you've worked so hard to create. That's where events comes in. Events are pre-planned, organized gatherings that are timely and time-bounded, which means they must have a start and end time. Some developers hear about events and think, I don't think that applies to my app, or I don't have the right infrastructure or content to support an event. But we've actually found that if you get a little bit creative, you can hold an event at almost no extra cost. What do I mean by that? If you're a multiplayer gaming app, just pick a time of the week, call it a weekly game night, and have people get together in your app. We found that people really like the opportunity to play with developers. So find a night you're free and hold a Play with Devs event. If you support tournaments, even better, you can leverage event stories to broadcast these tournaments to people who don't own your app already. If you're a media app, you can stream something live, like a concert, a show, maybe a basketball game or an esports game. If you have videos, you can have people get together and celebrate the premiere of a new video in a virtual movie theater, or have people gather to browse photos together in a virtual gallery. If your app supports interactions between people, your opportunities are almost limitless. You can hold a gathering around any topic, like meditation, or Ready Player One, or music. People can gather in your app to share knowledge and learn from each other, or celebrate a special occasion, like the SF Pride Parade in VR. There are so many opportunities here. A good rule of thumb is, if you can do something with somebody else in your app, just pick a time for that interaction to happen to turn it into an event. Earlier, you saw Matt discovering an amazing video of Salvador Dali's art in his Explore feed. If Matt were to see an upcoming event from your app in his Explore feed, this is what he would see. Remember, event stories are shown in advance before the event starts. So the earlier you create your event, the longer the lead time people will have to discover and then plan for your event. Here, Matt's able to find out how many other people are interested in attending the event. In this case, almost 900 people are interested, including 3 of his friends. Matt's also able to express his own interest in attending, which he does because he loves Coldplay and doesn't want to miss out on this. Now that he's interested, we send him push notifications to remind him about the event to make sure that it stays top of mind for him and that he's ready to join once the event starts. So it's finally the night of the event. Matt is really excited, puts on his Gear VR, and goes into the Samsung VR app. In this event, he's able to move around the audience, get up close to the stage, and hear tons of people cheering around him. It's an amazing experience. And Matt's really lucky, feels really lucky that he's able to be there because he wasn't able to attend the actual event in person. This was actually a great example of how events was able to help drive people into an app. While this event was going on, almost half, 48% of all people online in Gear VR were in the Samsung VR app for the Coldplay concert. That's huge. Samsung also saw a 56% increase in average time spent per person on this day. Here's another great example of an event. Casino VR Poker holds regular poker tournaments in VR. During these tournaments, you sit at a virtual poker table with up to 5 other people that you can interact with and talk to in avatar form. Casino VR gets really creative with their prizes. Sometimes they offer in-app chips. Sometimes they even offer other Gear games. These events have really helped Casino VR draw new players into their app. Over a 3-month time period, events contributed to 44% of the overall app installs for Casino VR Poker. The number of people online in Casino VR doubles in every single event. So creating an event is, again, super simple. This form can be found in the same place as both the announcement and in-app content forms. Again, we ask for a title, a description, and an image. And we ask for an event start and end time. We also ask for an optional deep link message so that people can launch straight into your event once it starts, instead of just launching your app. Now, I've seen a lot of different stories come through from developers, and I've gotten a pretty good sense of what helps make a story perform well. Before I share these tips with you, I want to give you a little bit more context around what happens after you create a story. Once you create a story, we identify a group of people that we think will be interested in your story. If a high percentage of those people engage with your story, that signals to us that we're on the right track. So we show it to a second group of similar people. As this continues, your story can gain more and more reach and be discovered by more and more people. This means the quality of your story can really impact its reach. So my first tip for you is to focus on quality. You want to grab people's attention immediately. Your title and thumbnail are the first things that people see about your story in VR. Make sure your titles are catchy and exciting. Make sure your thumbnails are vibrant and have recognizable content. Try to minimize the text on top of your thumbnail, but if you have a recognizable logo or branding, make sure that shows through. You want to use your voice. You're constantly building a brand for your app. Make sure your voice shows through in your tone and your visuals. Are you a hardcore gaming app, or are you a casual social app? The stronger your voice, the more brand recognizability you'll be able to build as we show your stories to people over and over again. Provide immersive previews. This is really important. We found that people are much more compelled to go into an app if they're able to preview its content first. In fact, stories with cube maps perform better in Explore than stories without. So make sure you have a cube map uploaded to the Oculus store. We've also found that when people consume a video preview with their story, they're significantly more likely to then download the app or launch into it afterwards. In fact, they're 66% more likely. That's a huge difference. You want to accurately reflect your content. Make sure your content is make sure your story is representative of your actual content. You don't have that many opportunities to grab someone's attention and convince them to come into your app. If you mislead somebody, even if we show your stories to them over and over again in the future, they may not choose to come back. And the last thing here is adhere to the Oculus Code of Conduct. Once you submit your story, we do a quick check to make sure that it's not in violation of any of our guidelines. You can find a full copy of the Oculus Code of Conduct online in the developer portal. So much like in real life, people on the Oculus platform are different, and they have different interests. Here, that's represented by the different colored icons. In the last illustration, we made our best guess as to who we should show your story to first. But you know your content way better than we do, and you can help us identify a better audience by providing us with a little bit more information about your story. Let me explain how interests come into play here. Let's say your first story is about soccer. Here, we've identified 6 people that we think like soccer. Based on the signal we get from the results of this first group, we identify a second group of people that we feel even more confident about that like soccer. In this case, it looks like the white colored icons like soccer and the yellow and blue colored icons might not. As this continues, we can gradually hone in on the right audience for your particular story. This means you don't have to worry about picking the story that you think appeals to the most people. No matter the scope or topic of your story, we will do the work to make sure we find the right audience. This also means the more information you can give us about your story up front, the better our first audience will be, and the more quickly we'll be able to reach this ideal audience. So what can you do to help us be more targeted? You want to create your story with a specific audience in mind. Make sure your story is compelling to this audience. Something like, a new boss is here, everybody get together to take him down, is much more compelling than updated to version 6.13. You also want to give us information to help us target this audience. Florence mentioned earlier that we have topic tags, and we currently tag all of our content with topics so that we can match it to users, to people who have also expressed interest in those topics. We are currently building topic tags in our developer creation form so that you guys will also be able to select the topics that are most relevant to your story. So now we know what happens when you create one story. Let's assume your first story is about badminton. Badminton's a little bit more of a niche topic, so it gets a moderate amount of engagement. But that's okay. You have a second story planned, an upcoming event of a live baseball game. Looks like people like baseball, so we end up showing it to more and more people. Actually, you have a third story planned, an upcoming video of a football game. People really like football, so it does really well, and we show it to more and more people. In this scenario, all three stories appeal to a slightly different audience. So combined, these three stories can pull more people into your app than any one story individually. The more stories you create, the higher the chance that you'll be able to appeal to people's broad spectrum of interests. Here's another benefit of creating more stories. Let's say OC4 has ended. I go home, I browse my Explore feed, and I see your first story about badminton. It's pretty interesting to me, so I download and jump into your app. A few days later, I see your story about the baseball event. I think I'd be interested in meeting more people, and baseball's pretty interesting, so I go into your app again for the event. A week later, I see your story about the football video. I like football a lot, so I go into your app again. The more stories you create, the more opportunities you'll have to pull people back into your app and re-engage them over and over again. So our big tip here is to go for volume. There's no such thing as too many stories. Setting up regular events is a great way to increase the number of stories, as well as build expectations for people so they know when they should come into your app. Try to be creative with your announcements. There are a lot of changes that go unannounced that could actually compel somebody to come back into your app again. The best thing you can do here is leverage the in-app content API to easily create stories for all of the existing content inside your app. Now, think back to the beginning of my talk. What was that one message you had that you really wanted people to know about your app? Was that a standalone piece of content that you could create an in-app content story for? Or was it an announcement about a new change or update? Maybe it was an upcoming gathering or live event. Now you know that you can create any one of these three stories, and we will do the work to make sure it shows up in Explore, our filters, and in Search. Now you also know that you can increase your reach even more by creating multiple stories that are high quality and targeted. And now you know that we're making your life easier by providing an in-app content API to let you create in-app content stories at scale. We care deeply about content discovery. Our services are constantly evolving. We will continue to iterate on and experiment with both Explore and Search. You can visit our developer documentation guide at ocul.us/discoverability to read more about these story types and to stay up to date with upcoming changes. Please reach out to us by email if you have any questions or are interested in joining the API beta program. If this talk was interesting to you, my colleague Isabel Tuis is speaking about how to maximize your retention in VR at 3 p.m. I would highly recommend attending. Florence, the rest of my team, and I will be available to chat and answer questions right outside after this. We're really excited to see what stories you create. Thanks.